I would like to call the Finance Committee meeting to order at 5:32 PM on March 30th, 2026.
Call the Selectboard to order at the same time?
On the same day.
On the same day.
So at some point this evening, is it Lisa's going to be joining?
Yes, and I don't see her on here yet.
Okay. So Lisa Mead is going to be joining us to talk about legal requirements for a Prop 2.5 override should we end up going that route. So as soon as she shows up, my plan is to go to that, talk about that, and then go back to the rest of our usual stuff. So let's start with minutes from the previous meeting.
I'll move to approve the minutes from the last meeting.
Second.
Any discussion or comments?
There was a lot of discussion there. Thank you, Jim.
Other than hooray for Jim for yeoman's effort in getting that done. That's amazing.
I sent her an abbreviated version, which was meeting convened, no action taken, meeting adjourned.
I kind of liked that one. All right, any other discussion? All those in favor? That passes unanimous, 400. Should we go ahead and do the schools? It's not there yet. Let's do schools. Let's start with 5,400 Deerfield Elementary.
I'll move to recommend the sum of $5,711,097 for Deerfield Elementary School, account number 300-5400.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Same motion for the Select Board.
Second.
Any discussion? Go ahead.
I just think it's worth noting or remembering that well, actually, I should ask the question. Is this 3.81% increase over and above the amended FY26 budget where over $100,000 was added to the elementary school budget from free cash in the fall?
It was, go ahead.
Are you talking for health insurance?
Yeah.
So health insurance is a separate budget sheet, so it's not included in this one. It is in the 900 series with the health insurance that we voted a couple weeks ago.
Okay, so it's bundled in that. Okay. All right, thank you.
Yeah. So this, I should have brought my notes. This 3.81% increase includes the reduction of one classroom, so they're dropping one classroom, the reduction of a 4th through 6th grade reading specialist, the reduction of a part-time PE teacher. They'll still have the full-time PE teacher, but they're reducing PE. And gosh, there was a fourth thing. Do you remember what the fourth one is?
Was it the librarian?
No, that's in the high school.
Oh, okay.
Special education
3.5.
liaison.
Oh, there's a special ed.
Education liaison. That's what's listed in their budget
Yeah.
presentation was those four.
The PE teacher is a part-time person, so, and some of that is achieved through attrition, but some of it is actual people losing their jobs. So
What is the current enrollment, or what enrollment number are they using for this budget?
do you have that?
It looks like it's 271 according to their budget presentation.
271.
271.
Do you have last year's? Do you have the prior years by any chance, or does anybody?
No, but I can get it in about 2 minutes.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I was wondering what the trend was, and I apologize. I haven't followed the elementary school. It keeps going
definitely
down.
dropping.
Okay, so
It's
it keeps
definitely
going
dropping.
down. Okay.
Yeah. And one of the comments they made, actually, is that over the years, they've reduced classrooms, but they have not reduced specials. So this reduction of the PE teacher, for example, makes sense because they can get by with fewer PE classes because they have fewer classrooms than they used to. And so that was the, go ahead, Jim.
So how many classrooms per grade do they have now? One?
Two.
Two.
There's
Okay.
2 classes per grade. Right now, there's 3 classes in 6th grade. Next year, there will be 2 classes in 6th grade, and that will be 2 classes for every grade.
And
Go ahead,
Margaret?
Don.
With all those reductions, is an overall increase? What's driving it up? What are the drivers that bring it, the bigger items?
Go for it.
Well, just from being around earlier, but it's a lot of it is special education, reading specialists, which we're losing one, and just a lot of wraparound services that the kids require, especially after COVID as well. So a lot of the cost is, and generally it's employees and their insurance and all of that stuff that really just kind of keeps driving budgets. So,
it's
but I think, the cuts are appropriate because, again, we're, same with Frontier. Since I was on the board, there's definitely 100 less kids. So at some point, it makes sense to drop back on the number of, support staff.
That makes sense. I was just wondering why it went up overall with those cuts, but that makes sense.
A lot of, yeah.
I guess with the teachers, what do they get overall, 5% roughly?
Roughly,
Yeah. So that's a big driver there.
it is. A lot of it is, it's usually employee-based. Yep.
The other comment Shelley made is that this year, they've had a number of teachers get more advanced degrees, which causes them to bump up. It's not just a step, it's an increase in what they get paid. There's also, my understanding is at least one new student with really significant special needs that's very expensive, and they're taking some of that out of school choice funding and some of it going against the town, whatever you call what we pay them.
General.
What do you call
yeah.
that?
General
General
fund?
fund, yeah.
And Margaret, just to answer your question, in their presentation, they list 2026 as 293 students, and 27 is estimated at 271.
Wow, that's a big drop in 1 year.
It is a big drop, yeah.
Well, I guess that 6th grade must be big, rolling out, yeah.
And
What is the total amount of school choice they're applying to this budget? Oh. I should have grabbed a copy of that somehow.
Yeah, so for FY27, again, this is just according to their budget presentation that they put out. It's 340,963, so about 341,000.
Any other questions?
So it's
Go ahead.
Dollar-wise,
Yeah.
big jump.
It is.
Obviously, when we look at, we met on the senior center's budget last week, and there is a, 129% increase, which is, I can't remember what the dollar figure is, $100-something thousand. And this is only a 3.81% increase with an increase of $209,580. Even at 2 point, we are putting an awful lot of free cash into recurring operating expenses.
Yep.
Way too much. In fact, I would suspect we're at the point or getting close to the point of applying the amount of certified free cash that potentially exceeds prior years' total free cash certification. I mean, if we look at prior year's free cash certification, we have applied an awful lot of this. This is a problem that's not going to go away, and I apologize. Here, I'm talking big picture concerns. But the 3.81% increases, even with decreases in staffing and things like that, isn't sustainable without the override discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts or comments, anybody?
I just wonder if there's any more that we could do here. I mean, even between 26 and 27, that's a big jump.
It is. Yep. And it was lower than this,
And then they get hit with a-
the first set of numbers that came through, and then this, my understanding is that the student with the severe special needs was identified, and that caused it to go up. I don't remember, do you remember what it was before? It was like 2.3 or something?
Reasonable.
No,
yeah.
it wasn't.
Did you just throw your sheets away?
It was more like,
I tossed them away, yeah.
I tossed mine too, I think.
yeah, I don't remember. Doesn't matter.
No.
Any other, like any of the budgets, we can, once we get through the whole thing and start looking at the overall, maybe we need to sit and look at the overall right now, and then we can come back and revisit it and ask for something more back.
If we're going to revisit, if we're going to revisit anyway, I know I came in late. Do we have a motion for the amount that's listed here?
We do.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
we can, as far as I'm concerned, I would be happy with recommending this for now and then taking a look at the big picture and seeing if we need to adjust this or any of the others.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we should
That's what
revisit
I'm
them all
feeling
at the
too,
same time.
but, okay. Any other comments or discussion? Anybody over there? All those in favor? That's unanimous, 500.
Motion to approve for select board?
Second.
We already did that, so. All is in favor?
Blake Gilmore, aye.
Trevor McDaniel, aye.
Tim Milchi, aye. We're on a short leash.
We need more, thing. All right. Frontier Regional, 310, 5400. We don't have Lisa yet, right? Okay.
I'll make a motion for discussion to approve count 310-5400 Frontier Regional School for $4,657,844.
Second.
Discussion?
So moved for the select board?
Oh, sorry.
Second?
Any discussion?
Again, this is declining enrollment as well?
It is, and our number of students dropped by 8
Did it?
in the 5-year roll-up. So I guess there are 8 more students 5 years ago than there are today or something.
I'm sorry,
Do you
what
want?
was the drop in number of students?
So according to their budget presentation, 26 enrollment was 222 and 27 is 214. So it was a drop of 8 students at Frontier for Deerfield.
And that's just Deerfield students.
Just Deerfield, yes. Overall, it was a drop of, went from 472 to 470. Overall, there was just a drop of 2 students in the entire population, but ours was down 8.
And that 472 number includes school choice?
I mean, it just says enrollment, so I
Okay.
would assume it's
Yeah.
everybody.
I feel better about this one. I think that the changes that were made here were pretty thorough. I know in previous years we've kind of done level services, and I think Frontier did their due diligence with, trying to cut back to, assess the towns at a reasonable number. So, yeah, I feel comfortable with the recommendation for this one.
This also includes healthcare.
Yeah.
So it's 2.7 with the 12.5% increase in healthcare.
Yeah, and they ended up increasing, premiums and deductibles and stuff for that. So
Yeah.
I know they really did, the best they could for this one.
Any other discussion?
If I can just point out, I'm just going to mention, we'll get to this one next, but I'm just going to remind folks that the Frontier Regional decided to fund the parking lot in full from their funds, so there was an additional $51,000 for capital for the parking lot that they have taken away. So none of the member towns will be paying for that. The regional school is going to take care of that. So I think that helped our assessment out a great deal too.
Any other comments or discussion? All
There's
those in,
been-
go ahead.
There's been a lot of controversy about, I guess they're going to get rid of the librarian.
They are, yes.
There's been, I don't know if we need to discuss it, but there's been a lot of controversy about that. I mean, I don't, as the committee, I don't know what we do, if we should address it or not. But I don't think, because of all the controversy, I'm not sure we should sit here and ignore it.
Go ahead, Jim.
Well, if I recall, the reduction of the position does not mean they're closing the library.
Correct.
Yeah.
Do we need to discuss it? I guess. Maybe not.
I mean, absolutely. You've brought it up, so we can discuss it. In my personal opinion, I'm not knowledgeable about running schools, right? I look from the sidelines. And my feeling is that the administration is actually, I mean, they're pretty responsible about and very thoughtful about the way they approach these things. And when Darius was asked at the school committee meeting if we had extra funds and we were going to put back one of those positions, he said he would actually, he thinks that the services to the students, that it would be better to add back in the special ed and the mental health positions that are being cut rather than the library because of the way the classrooms work and whatever. And I just, I don't personally, I'm not in the schools at all. From my perspective, I just have to trust what he says unless somebody else. Go ahead, Blake.
So the other thing, when we attended the meeting there, they said that a lot of the services that the library is doing is now being covered by other departments throughout the school, so that job has been going down as well as far as responsibilities go, not to take away from what a librarian does, but there were a lot of different things with computers and things like that that are now going with other departments. That's what they said the night of the school committee meeting, so.
I'm not disagreeing with it, I'm just,
Yeah.
I agree
I guess
with
the
you,
other
Julie.
thing too is that
Who
the
am I
school
to
committee
second-guess
passed it, right? And they're much closer than we are. So if the
Right.
school committee recommends this number, and I mean,
I agree.
I kind of have trouble arguing, but it doesn't stop me from arguing, but it does.
There was a lot of discussion about, from people during that meeting, former staff members, et cetera, got up and spoke in favor of it. One of the big concerns was there was a feeling that a certain group, a certain number of students found the library to be a safe haven place where they could go, and that the librarian Keenan was really effective at helping students understand how to do research, et cetera. But that still didn't end up swaying the decision of the school committee.
Anything else? No. All those in favor? That's unanimous.
All those in favor, Select Board?
Blake Gilmore, aye.
Tim Hilchi, aye.
Trevor McDaniel, aye.
Next one is debt service, but zero. Do we have to vote it if it's zero? No. Okay, good. Frontier Regional Transportation, 315,500.
I'll recommend the sum of $111,139 for Frontier Regional Transportation, account number 315-5800.
Second.
Same motion for the select board.
Second. This has come down too, it looks like.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, this is a pleasant surprise. What do we know? Did they happen to discuss the drivers of this? No? Okay.
I mean, it went up a ton last year, so it's
So-
nice to see it come
Yeah,
back
so
a little
maybe
bit to more
maybe
level.
that's,
So just for the public's
Adjustment.
information, this is a reduction of $11,141 or a reduction of 9.11%.
Thank you.
Do we have a motion?
we do. Margaret and Mark,
Okay, sorry.
any discussion? All those in favor? All right, that's unanimous.
All those in favor for the select board?
Blake Gilmore, aye.
Tim Hilchey, aye.
Trevor McDaniel, aye.
Franklin Tech,
Also a good number.
Make a motion to approve Franklin Test Assessment Account 320-5410 for $589,745.
Second.
Same motion for the select board.
Second?
any discussion?
So I believe this reflects a decrease in enrollment as well for Deerfield students. But we should keep in mind, we do have a very big ask coming from Franklin Tech and a debt exclusion that'll be held on October 6th in all the Franklin Tech towns.
Yeah. Yeah, the October 6th will be a vote for or against the building, and I think will we be able to get the debt exclusion into that same, it doesn't matter, we don't have to figure that out now. It may or may not be, there may be a second vote after that, that's the debt exclusion, but, go ahead, Jim.
Just for clarification, is the decline in enrollment of just Deerfield students, or has the
Yeah.
entire school's enrollment declined?
I believe this reflects a decline in Deerfield students, if I'm not
Right.
mistaken. I think that's what they went over.
And I think they do plan, though, to kind of pare their overall down, right? If the new school passes, I assume, right? Because they were right around 650, and they were trying to get back down around 600 somewhere.
Well, they can look at those elementary school class sizes as well as we can.
Exactly. Any discussion? All those in favor? It's unanimous.
All those in favor, select board?
Blake Gilmore, aye.
Tim Hilchey, aye.
Trevor McDaniel, aye.
All right, Franklin Tech Debt Service.
Make a motion to approve Franklin Tech Debt Service Account 320-5800 for $18,709.
Second.
Same for select board?
Second.
Any discussion?
Anybody know how many more years we have on this?
I don't know.
Nor
Have you
do
heard
I,
how-
but I do know that if the vote passes on October 6th and construction begins, we're going to be on the hook for whatever's left in this particular debt service.
They can't roll it into the new debt?
They might roll it into the new debt, but we're going to be on the hook for the ballots, either way.
All right, any discussion, questions, comments?
The good
Those-
news is it's a decrease.
Yeah.
All those in favor? It's unanimous.
All those for the select board?
Blake Gilmore, aye.
Tim Hilchey, aye.
Trevor McDaniel, aye.
All right, Smith Voc is just on the, that summary sheet, right? There's no
Right.
sheet for
The
it.
latest one?
on
We
this
haven't had
thing.
one for a while, right?
Yeah.
What's the date of that one?
Mine says 3/9/2026.
Yeah.
Yeah, mine too.
So it looks like we've got 50,000 for tuition and 40,000 for transportation. Is that number still?
Yeah, so right now we're budgeting the same as last year. We don't have any further information. My understanding is would you say it was April 1st is the date for them to sort of declare whether they're going to go to one of the other schools or not. So we don't have any information right now. We're doing the same moves as we did last year, which is fits for 2 students at Smith Voc, and that's what we've been budgeting the last couple of years.
I will say, because town meeting is later now, this is in, early mid-May, we will have a chance to kind of tighten up this number a bit more,
Yeah.
because I believe usually the schools figure it out over April vacation. And so that previously was right up against town meeting.
Right.
Now we've got a little more time.
Okay.
So hopefully we'll be able to have a solid number before town meeting.
If we have a reduction, would be great.
So we could, yeah, go
I
ahead.
have a question.
Jordan.
Would we still, would we still carry some money? Say that we find nobody is declared in April. Would we still carry some money in case somebody over the summer moved town, blah, blah, blah? Okay, yeah. Didn't know how much we could.
My suggestion would be yes, because one of the reasons for that is we can do reserve fund transfers to existing lines. If we did not vote anything, if it was $0, we couldn't do a transfer into
Okay.
it. So even if we budgeted, say that we knew there were going to be 0 students, we would likely still budget like $100 in that line item, so that we had the option to do a reserve fund transfer over to it instead
Okay.
of going back to a town meeting to
Okay.
to appropriate if needed.
That's good
Okay.
to know.
My suggestion.
Yeah.
So would you like a motion on this tonight, or?
That's what I'm sitting here wondering.
Yeah.
Maybe we should just wait until
Yeah.
after April 1st, and you know what? Let's
Well, Lisa's here.
do. All right, good timing. How about we go ahead, vote this number, because it'll be you said after April vacation that we'll really know. So if we vote this number, then we will have voted it, and we'll have something that we can do that. So let's go ahead and quickly do that, and then we'll go over to the Prop 2.5 discussion with Lisa. So,
I move to recommend $50,000 for Chapter 74 Smith Vocational Sped Tuition and $40,000 for Smith Vocational Transportation.
Second.
So move for Select Board?
Second.
any discussion? All those in favor? That's unanimous, 500.
Select Board.
Woody Gilmore, aye.
Tim Hilchey, aye.
Trevor McDaniel, aye. Thank you.
All right. So hello, Lisa, welcome.
There we go. Hello.
So I don't know what we're doing.
Sure. I spoke with Lisa last week. Obviously, after Monday's meeting, there's been a lot of conversation about a Prop 2.5 general operating override. We haven't done one of those in about 30 years, so there's a lot of lack of familiarity in the town about what the exact kind of process is there. Talked to Lisa about it. She has, I believe, some examples of how different communities have gone through it. In particular, I was interested to hear a little bit about, what are the different ways you can kind of put these questions on the ballot. There's a pyramid structure or a menu structure or various different options. And so I thought, Lisa could speak to a little of that. And then if finance and select board members have questions, she's available to speak to those as well, because I think she's doing at least a couple this spring and probably every spring. So,
Yeah.
so she has the background.
Thanks, Christopher. This is hot this spring, to say the very least. We probably have a half dozen communities so far doing overrides as part of their regular annual town meeting budget process. Communities that you never thought you'd hear that from, as well as communities that you're not necessarily surprised given their tax base. So let me tell you a couple of general rules on an override, because there's a couple of misconceptions that are out there. So the town meeting appropriates the funds for an override. That's what town meeting's job is. So, for example, on your warrant, you could do it a couple of different ways. You could have two different budgets, for example. You could have a budget that was contingent upon an override and a budget that just plain met the revenues that you had, which, if the override passes, would go away. Or you could have your budget with knowing the revenues that you have, and then have a separate article that says to see if the town will vote to appropriate $2 million, raise and appropriate $2 million more for general government contingent upon an override. And so they pass that article, and that's the $2 million appropriation. That's all that town meeting does, period. Then it's up to the select board to put it on the ballot. So town meeting doesn't put anything on the ballot. The select board decides to put something on the ballot. Town meeting appropriates the funds. So then the select board would decide, okay, well, the town meeting has said we have $2 million contingent upon an override. We should put this on an override. And as Christopher said, there are essentially three different ways to put a question before the voters. So first of all, the select board has to decide and tell the town clerk at least 35 days in advance of an election. So whether it's a special election or your annual election, it has to be done 35 days in advance. The select board can do that before or after town meeting. So if they do it before, then if it passes and town meeting says no, then there's no appropriation. And you could have a special town meeting and try to get it later if you wanted. If it doesn't pass at the ballot and it goes to town meeting and it passes, then the select board can have a special election afterwards. But you do need to give 35 days notice to have it on the ballot. So the kind of questions that can go on, it can be a simple question. This is just, shall the town be allowed to assess an additional $2 million in real estate and personal property taxes for the purposes of the operating budget for municipal government and schools? Could be that simple. You could have two questions like that. Shall the town be allowed to assess an additional $1 million in real estate and personal property taxes for the purpose of general government? And then you could have one for the schools if you wanted to do it that way. You could even break it down even further if you wanted to. But that's just a simple question, up or down. If it gets more than 50% of the vote, then it passes. You can also do what they call a pyramid vote. And I'm sitting here looking at my notes because I don't want to misspeak on this. So a pyramid override takes a lot of education for the voters. It's important, and instruction. The voters have a choice of two or more different funding levels for general funding purposes. And the funding levels are presented as alternatives, not independent proposals, which means the highest funding level proposed in a question also includes all of the lower ones. Therefore, if the voters approve more than one question, the question stating the highest dollar amount prevails, right? So if you have a question of $9 million for general government, and then you have a question for $6 million for general government, and then you have a question for $3 million for general government, all at the same time, and somebody approves the $6 million one, the voters approve the $6 million one, and they approve the $9 million one, the $9 million one is the one that matters. So it's the highest one. So as you can imagine, that takes some education for the voters to understand that. Trevor, did you have a question?
Well, just for clarity, can we lower this number a little?
So I'm going to tell you, yeah, we can, it can be a couple $100,000, right? So I'm telling you that because I had a town recently who was putting an $11 million question on the ballot. All right. So, and they had a big discussion about whether it should be 11, 9, and 6. So those numbers are stuck in my head because I've been working with them. But I have towns that do $500,000, right? I have towns that do $1 million. So it can be any number that you want it to be. Sorry about that. Tim?
Are you able to prepare a one-page sheet that will summarize what you're telling us tonight?
It won't be one page, but I will prepare something that gives you examples. And actually, Christopher and I already talked about that after we have this conversation, I'll send that document out. In fact, I was working on it before I got on this call. But yes, I will put it in writing because I think it's important for you to see it in writing in order to understand it. And then finally, they have this thing called a menu also. And all the menu one is, and I just want to slide up to my, all the menu one is that people can have various choices. So, instead of just the single questions, they can decide, well, I want to fund $100,000 for the police department, and I want to fund $100,000 for the fire department, but I don't want to fund $100,000 for the schools. So you actually, instead of having one large number that says general government or schools, you actually break it down even further by department if that's what you wanted to do.
I guess I
So-
had go ahead.
Yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions.
So where I'm coming at this a little bit is we're not sure if we need to, but the possibility is, after we get through all of our looking at all the budgets, if the choice is to give the voters an option to move our senior center to another building, we were going to need, because it's rent and it would need to go in our general fund, it's not a debt excluded 2.5 override. It's a, we have to raise the level of our, our budget a certain amount, 100,000 or something like that. And then I also had a question whether, we have been funding our SCEMS project, three-town project for the last several years because we weren't really sure how it was going to work out with free cash each year, and we're getting to the point where we feel like comfortable enough in that number that we think it should be part of the budget, or just my 2 cents. I think it should be part of the budget, and that would lower our free cash each year, which is understandable. But in that case, would we need to raise our levy limit, say 400,000, because we're rolling it in, or we're just going to say, hey, we're only raising it to 100,000 to cover a senior center move, and we're just going to internally move that operating budget into free cash and not, into the operating budget, and just know we're going to have less in free cash. I just didn't know if you had to raise the levy limit as well to cover that or not.
Not if you, well, so let's deal with the senior center thing first. So, right, so let's just say that it's going to cost an extra $100,000 to operate the senior center, which you don't have, right? You can't find it.
Yep.
So you would have an override for $100,000 for the purposes of the senior center. Please know that that designation is only for the first year of the override. Every year thereafter, it's up to the town to appropriate those monies where they determine they need to appropriate those monies.
I see.
So that's, you all need to work that out.
Okay.
Then, as far as the SCEMS is concerned, you have to make a decision whether or not you want, essentially, which just sounds like you have a structural deficit if you're using
Right.
your free cash to fund SCEMS, right? So instead of using free cash, you want to raise the levy limit so that it becomes part of your operating budget. So that's what you would do, and then the free cash would go to whatever else. Typically, free cash should, so to speak, under general accounting principles, one-time expenditures, right? So,
Right.
in order to stop the bleeding, if you will, in that structural deficit, you would want to do an override to support SCEMS moving forward.
I guess my question was, since we cover it each year, do we really need to raise the levy limit that amount, or just understand we're going to have less in free cash? It is a bit of a gamble, but the gamble's
It's a
been paying
bet,
off
right?
for the last,
It's just a decision.
7 years or 10 years, so.
Well, that's a policy question,
Okay.
not a legal question, right? So, all you need to do is you look at your accountants and your finance committee and decide whether or not you should spend your free cash on operating budgets.
Yeah, no, but we would have to raise the levy limit. Right, or cut. Yeah, there's not another way to just move that money into the operating budget.
No.
Well, you could put it in the operating budget, and then we would just cover more of the operating budget with free cash, right? It's an
Right.
accounting thing right now, but,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
Thus
yeah,
not
yeah.
solving the structural problem.
I have a question, and I'm not sure this is for Lisa, but I'm going to ask it while you're here. The proposal is to go to 112 Amherst Road for the senior center, and that's an extra $100,000 to do that. But they're not going to rent it on the 1st of July, so they're not actually going to need that money. They're not going to need that much money in FY '27. So when we appropriate money to the senior center for their budget, does that all go just immediately into a senior center account, or do they have to spend it down to use it?
They spend it down. It's just like any other department. They're operating. They have a lot of other revolving accounts that they use, but
Right.
the actual senior center budget is just like everybody else's budget. They're just continually spending it. It doesn't get moved.
Wouldn't it just be that much less? Like if you put in 6
Right.
months' worth of rent in the budget?
Yeah, exactly.
I had a question on that line. I thought they had a carryover. They had.
They spent it.
I know they spent it for sure, and that's probably the right thing to do and be done with that. But I didn't know if that was a yearly thing that should happen or not.
So I guess,
It's okay. You don't have to answer it now. No, I was
Yeah,
just side.
so this is an accounting question also, not a legal question,
yeah,
right,
it's an
Lisa?
accounting and budget. I mean, if it's how you do your operating budget, right? You need the money for 9 months, not 12 months, then you appropriate 9 months, right? I mean,
But it's your levy
Yeah,
limit that
okay.
you're raising to cover it long term. I mean, if you know.
So for the vote at town meeting, if a Prop 2.5 override is proposed, that's more than 50-50, right? That has to be what, 2/3 or something?
no, not at all. It's half. It's you think of 2/3 as your debt exclusion, which is also usually includes a borrowing, but it's a simple majority. In the select board vote is also a simple majority. The only time that it's a 2/3 is when the select board is putting a debt exclusion on the ballot, and that's a 2/3 vote of the select board. If the debt exclusion vote at town meeting includes a borrowing, it is also a 2/3. But if the debt exclusion does not include a borrowing at town meeting, it is a simple majority. So
Okay.
this vote for an operating override would be a simple majority.
Hi, Lisa. We're expected to identify the fiscal year in which the override funds or the levy limit could be overridden, correct? So if we had an override, say, in June, we wouldn't necessarily have to specify for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2026. Could we actually present an override well in advance of the fiscal year we're seeking the override for? So
Yeah.
for the following fiscal year?
Yeah, interestingly enough, you can actually at one time, you could pass overrides for the ensuing fiscal years, plural, right? So you could have $500,000 for FY 2027, $500,000 for FY 28, $500,000 for FY 29. You could vote all of that at one time if you wanted to. But so yes, you are supposed to identify the fiscal year in which it begins, and you may approve at one time operating overrides for later fiscal years.
Once you raise that levy limit, that stays, correct? It's not something you take back in another year.
That's correct. It stays. It's built into your levy limit then.
Yeah.
You can do an underride.
Oh, yeah.
What, you'd have
Yeah,
to
so
come
you
back
would
and
have
do
to
an
vote
underride.
again to
Yes.
To lower
undo
it.
it. But otherwise, yeah, it's
Pretty
forever.
rare you do that. No, pretty rare.
There's some that have happened.
Yeah. Okay.
Generally, the year after an override. I was looking into this. One year there's an override, and then like at special town meeting, or the next year there's an underride. So somebody got mad and unvoted it. But
It's like prohibition.
Yeah.
yeah, there you go.
Until you do it.
Can you talk about campaigning or I don't know the word, but
Yep.
Advocating.
Campaign political finance issues related
yeah,
to this?
Yeah.
Sure. So until it's put on the ballot, it's just like any question in front of a town meeting, right? People in the town officers, the town employees, they can all give information, talk about it, encourage people to vote for it at town meeting, all of those kinds of things. The minute it's voted to be put on the ballot, it becomes a political question, and it's governed by the rules under the Office of Campaign and Political Finance. In which case, if you have people that are proponents of it, they should form a committee. Municipal officials, that being employees and elected officials, are not allowed to use town resources to support or oppose the override. They can provide factual, non-persuasive information. So if somebody wants to say, where's this money going and what is it being used for and what will our taxes be, town officials can provide that information. That's all very straightforward information. What they can't do is have Christopher prepare a persuasive piece that then is duplicated on your copy machines at town hall and then is delivered, right? You can't do that. So anything that would be deemed campaigning one way or the other after it's on the ballot would have to follow the rules of campaign and political finance.
And
So-
that's any paid or elected official? Is that what you said?
What elected officials can do things on their own outside of using municipal resources, right? Like, the finance committee and the select board can go out and talk to people and have coffees and try to encourage them to pass or not pass the override, but they can't use town resources to do that, right? They can't prepare documents. They can't ask town employees to prepare a document one way or the other. They can have factual information that can be used, right? But they can't use town resources to campaign one way or the other.
This is just a nuanced question. So, say before it's put on the warrant, a document is prepared by a town employee that says X, Y, and Z are the effects of doing this, and it's printed out, and there's 200 copies. When it's on the warrant, if there's only 100 copies have been taken, do the other ones have to be destroyed, gotten rid of, not given out?
No, because if it's on the warrant, it doesn't matter. It can be on the warrant and pass, and you can use all kinds of town resources. The question is, when does the select board vote to put it on the ballot? That's the trigger point, not the warrant. So if you vote to put it on the ballot before town meeting, you have to be very careful about what resources you use at town meeting to present this, right? And they all have to be straightforward and factual. If you don't vote to put it on the ballot until after town meeting, then you just do regular stuff at town meeting.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Lisa, do you know what the legal test would be for what would be considered persuasive language, or could you provide that for us if you don't know that off the top of your head?
I can provide it for you, and there are, it is, presenting something factual. I just don't know how else to say it, right? Here's what the override dollars are. Here's what it's going to do to your tax rate. Here's what the purpose of the funds are, right? As opposed to saying, your tax rate is going to go through the roof.
Yeah, I'm just
Right.
wondering, like, has anything ever bubbled up to the SJC or anything about, and has it been tested, in
Well,
any-
yeah, for sure. The Office of Campaign and Political Finance has some. I'm sure that they have some examples that we could provide to you. The leading case from the SJC via Office of Campaign and Political Finance is Anderson versus the City of Austin.
Okay, thank you. Because I
yeah.
know that we've had this even contested here in town, so I appreciate that. And then the second question I had is, when we talk about town resources, does this include like the town copier, copy paper toner?
Yeah, all of that. After it's put on the ballot.
What about the use of a town computer to generate materials?
Yep.
Great, glad we're all on the same page. Thanks.
And Mark, just to follow up on that, so there's an interpretive bulletin from the Office of OCPF that I'm going to be sending out to employees, just because we know this is at least being discussed, and that mentions Anderson and addresses some of this stuff. So I'll get everyone a copy.
Great, thank you.
So that includes
follow-up.
like a point. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
A follow-up to that, do town-owned resources also include school, district, and library resources?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
How about
Okay,
appointed
I'm
people?
gonna ask a silly
ahead.
follow-up question as well. Gift and donation funds and grant funds to the town would also be town-owned resources as well?
And what I'm trying to understand what that, like, can you use those funds to support a side one way or the other?
Right. Would they be able to use, gift and donation funds?
No, absolutely not.
Okay, that's what I thought. Thank
Yep.
you.
How about appointed officials that are not
Everybody-
paid and not
ev-
elected?
Everybody.
So they
Yep.
count, right?
You just can't use any official, including employees, on their own time, can go out and do whatever they want on this. They can go out and campaign and do whatever. They just can't use town resources to do it, or do it if they're employees on town time.
Even if the
Tour of the
employee is a
building?
volunteer or a special municipal employee,
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah.
Because you can't use your position
Correct.
to
Right.
advocate, correct?
You can use your position. You can say, you can go out and advocate for this if you want to on your own time. I can go out and say, I'm the finance director, and just so you know, I think you should pass this, and this is why I should pass it, but it has to be on your own time. It cannot be using town resources. It can't be during the day. It has to be on your own time.
Can I get one clarification on that? Like, I have a town-owned laptop. I cannot write information on my laptop to advocate one way or the other on this. If I
Correct.
use my own laptop, I mean, Selectboard don't really have a time that they're working and they're not working, so that's a little more tricky because we're always on. Or
Well,
always
no,
off.
yeah, but you're not getting paid. You're an elected official, right? You're not showing up and getting a salary from the town, right?
Correct. We have a
So you could
stipend.
do
We have
it
a stipend.
however you want to do it, but you can't use your town laptop.
Correct. Yep. Okay.
Tour of a town building is included and prohibited.
So the issue with the town building is it should be, unless you allow political groups to use a town building, in which case you need to allow everybody to have the same access.
Okay.
this, is the transfer station issue.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So as long as the select board hasn't voted to put a dollar figure on a ballot for a specific amount for a specific purpose, you could say, I'm going to give a tour of this building because in the future, it could be used for X, Y, Z. But if we did put it on and had a ballot, we couldn't do that anymore. Or
That's correct.
Unless
So-
it's just presenting factual information.
Right. So I've had communities where it's on the warrant. We want a contingent appropriation on the warrant. And they do exactly what you've just suggested, Tim. They say, you should come see, the heating system in the schools. It's about ready to, to blow up. And that's why you should support the warrant question.
Right.
Right? The minute the select board vote to send a question to the town clerk, it becomes a political matter.
That's great. That's helpful.
Go ahead, Jim.
One more rules lawyery type question. What about employees of multi-town entities? SCEMS, South County Senior Center, et cetera. Are they under the same restriction?
Yeah, they cannot use town resources. So here's the tricky thing. Let's say you have a director of a regional facility, right? And so both regional facilities, Deerfield and let's just take Whately, right? I don't know. I'm just making this up. So you have Deerfield and Whately, and that person works for both communities. And Whately said, we're going to put this as an override and vote to put their question on the ballot. And Deerfield hasn't done that. The question is, can that employee do things and advocate for things in Deerfield related to the warrant question? And the answer is yes, but that employee is walking a tightrope because they have to make certain that they are not advocating for something that's on the ballot in Whately. So that's a very tenuous, down the line issue that person has to be really careful.
So if you have a situation where you've got the one town that's got it on the ballot.
I can't, Art, I can't hear
Sorry.
you.
Okay. So it's Blake Gilmore. If you have this set up so that one town already has it on the ballot, the other does not, and somehow people are invited from Whately to come up to Deerfield and to do the whatever they're going to do, whether it's going to be take a look at the building or whatever the case may be that's not in Whately, is that doable?
Yeah, it is, because if Deerfield hasn't put it on the ballot yet, and the discussion is about what Deerfield's going to do, not about what Whately's done, then I think the answer is yes.
And I'm going to ask this question because FCAT's here. So if FCAT is filming for Agency X, which has an override question on the warrant, at what point are they, and they're doing this for Agency X, is that illegal if it's on a ballot question because the Agency X is a town employee or a regional employee?
Tim, I'm not really sure. So FCAT is filming something.
So just to give you a little overview, I'm the general manager of FCAT. So we are a nonprofit, but we are funded on public money through
Yeah, but you're a
franchise fees.
nonprofit and you get your
Right.
funds separately. So you can film and show whatever it is that you're showing based upon your rules.
Okay, I do have a second question for you, if you guys don't mind. Are we allowed to do like information as long as there's no call to action?
Yes.
does the show so as people can see what they're voting on, just AV aids?
Right. You have to do your typical non-political thing. You know, there's a
Okay.
question coming, you know, I can imagine a show or a film that says, you know, there's a question coming up on the warrant,
Okay.
or there's a question even on the ballot. Here are the facts.
Okay.
Right.
So we could do that then if like somebody, yeah. All right. Thank you. Thank you. You guys answered my question.
So the governing board for them happens to be select board members from the 3 towns. So they're actually 4 towns. And what about them as far as the...
Are you talking about FCAT?
Yeah. There's select board members that are on the board of oversight for them.
Yeah, but that's because of the board. That's how the board is compromised. It's still a nonprofit,
Okay.
right?
Thank
You're
you.
not controlling the programming,
No.
right?
So if the, if Agency X has had FCAT film something for them, and it says just numbers, that's one thing, but what if it says, this is why you should vote to
Well, you can't
approve?
do that. You can't do that.
Okay.
Right. Unless it's only on the warrant.
Right, right.
Right.
And even then, we'll go against your operating procedures. All right. I think we've figured a way how to stay out of jail here pretty well, so we're good. Thank you.
Is there anything else we should be asking?
what-
You know this better than we do. Any other issues we
No,
should be
I think the
worried
key
about?
really is that the things that are most important is how you frame the question, the article, right? So I have towns that do it different ways. So I have a town that literally has first on the warrant a budget based upon the revenues that they have, right? And then it says, in the event the next article, let's call it Article 2, is passed and passed at the ballot for an override, then this budget shall no longer be of effect. And then Article 2 actually is a budget contingent upon the passage of, let's call it $1 million override. So that's one way to do it. Another way to do it, as I said before, is you pass a budget based upon the revenues that you know that you have, and then you pass another article that says that you're passing an override for the purpose of funding general government as follows in the amount of $1 million, and then you would have to say where you're appropriating those funds, so you don't have to go back to town meeting. So an additional 100,000. So to see if the town will vote to appropriate an additional $100,000 for the senior center and an additional $100,000 for SCEMS, contingent upon the passage of a Proposition 2.5 override, right? So now you don't have to, if it passes, you don't have to go back to town meeting to appropriate the funds because they've already appropriated in the right place, right? And then the select board says, okay, look, here's $200,000. The select board can put that on the ballot in a couple of different ways. One way would be to see if the town will assess an additional $200,000 in real and property taxes for general government, right? They could just do it like that. Or they could say to assess an additional $100,000 for the senior center, to assess additional $100,000 for SCEMS, right? So they could break it up like that or break it into separate questions.
And that's
so it's really how you craft your warrant articles is really important on whether or not you would need to come back to town meeting if the override passed.
And that's really educationally kind of, that's our intent would be to be upfront and honest as we can for that. We would say just how you laid it out, which we'd want to do. And then, so that would cover the first. If it passes, everything's done. Next year, you really, it's in the budget. It is what it is.
It's already there.
It's already there. You're not kind of telling where it's going to be, but obviously we all have memories and we would just keep it in the same spot. But it's not like it has to be directed specifically to that one spot, but that's obviously
No,
why
you're just
we'd be
going
doing
to
it.
adopt your budget the
Right.
next year, right?
Okay.
feeling done.
Yeah.
All right. Oh,
The
Trevor.
one thing I would say is, I guess, thank you, but another discussion for us is kind of think about, is it just solely this, and we can have this discussion after at some point, is it solely just this item, or do we want to talk about rolling in the other items, or not, just leave it alone?
Yeah,
and
no, we
deal with
definitely
another
talk
year or
about
something?
that. Yeah.
Thank you, Lisa, very much.
All right, you're welcome, and I'll get you an overview that'll be a little longer than one page.
Actually, one final question, Lisa. So even if we discuss this with the Finance Committee, it's really the Select Board that has to make the decision. We just take their advice, and if they say, you should put $1 million on there, and we say, no, we only want 500,000, their advice is their advice, and our decision is our decision about what goes on the warrant?
No. Well, on the warrant, yes, right, because the warrant is your warrant, right? So, correct. And then it goes to town meeting, and then you do your thing on the ballot.
Not that we would ignore the FinCom. I'm just saying.
You have the power.
Yes, it's your budget approved by the FinCom.
So I actually do have a question. Say for discussion purposes, the ballot and the warrant say Prop 2.5 override, $100,000 for the senior center. And it passes. Do we have to increase the senior center budget by 100,000, or as long as you spend at least 100,000 on the? I'm thinking about like the rent isn't going to come due right away. The senior center budget is more than $100,000 as it stands right now. So if we said Prop 2.5, $100,000 for the senior center, and the senior center budget didn't actually go up $100,000, it went up $50,000. Is that like legally, are we okay with that?
Well, so what would happen is it would fall into free cash, right? So you so you say you're going to appropriate $100,000 to the senior center at the end of the year, they only use $50,000, then it falls into free cash.
Okay.
You still would have to appropriate the full 100,000, though, correct?
Right, that's the
Yeah,
warrant
you'd
article.
still have to
Because it
right.
would say that.
Appropriate
in the
$100,000,
warrant.
right.
Okay.
It just may not be doesn't have to be spent.
Do we, I guess my last question is, could we have a warrant article to appropriate an additional 100,000 towards this budget? I guess it's probably a silly question. If we found we had the money to cover it, would we have to do a Prop 2.5 override? No, I guess you'd have to figure it out before that, right?
You need to figure it out before you put your
Right.
budget in front of the town meeting.
Yeah, whether we pull it from, and you can't. One last question: Can you fund a position like that? Like, so just starting off, if we feel like, hey, we're going to be able to swing this in our town, and we don't think we need a Prop 2.5 override. I just lost my train of thought.
You said something about funding a position.
Yeah, right. Can we fund it? Could I fund that position or that extra money from general stabilization for 1 year, knowing that we would have enough revenue in the later years to cover it? Or can you?
Well, that takes a 2/3 vote to get it out of general stabilization. And Trevor, I'm back to my mantra, put my former mayor's hat on to say that one-time expenditures are what stabilization free cash
Correct.
are supposed to cover, right?
Yep. Okay, fair enough. Trying to find all out.
Does if voted, does the override increase by 2.5% each subsequent fiscal year?
Yes, that value is then in your base.
Great class. Thank you. It's very helpful.
Thanks, Lisa.
You're welcome. Take care. Everybody have a good evening.
Have a great
Good
night.
night.
Thank you so much.
Enjoy the weather.
Bye.
That was good.
All right.
Can can I just say one thing? Because I know Cassie's listening in, and she was just shooting me a text. So just to be clear, so the scenario we've kind of been looking at is having the select board either at the same meeting or maybe at an only very slightly later meeting voting to put an override on the ballot if that's what's determined to be the course of action. The latest I understand that could be done is April 13th, and that is a few days after, we are supposed to be voting to close the warrant. So probably in all likelihood, this vote would be on April 8th instead.
Because we wouldn't want the extra expense of running an additional, because we already got an additional in the
Right.
fall, provided, yeah.
And I did talk to Cassie about, what if, for whatever reason, we're looking at later in the fall and there is a November ballot.
Mhm.
That ballot already has 13 referendum questions on it.
Right.
So this override would be at the bottom of that stack of papers that people are rifling through when they have to cast a ballot.
idea.
So we really probably don't want to,
Right.
just from a mechanics
And because
perspective, do that.
the tech school is funded by a different entity, you can't add it to that warrant either. Yeah.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
cost of that election is borne by the tech school. So,
Right.
yeah.
And it's already a big number.
Relevant to that, are we meeting on the 6th?
We are meeting on the 6th.
Okay.
We are meeting, we're meeting at 5 PM, and I gave away 6 PM and later to the Capital Committee because they were having trouble coming up with a date that they could all meet. So we are on from 5 till 6, and then we're going to get out of the way so Capital can meet. Because otherwise it would have been it was at least another week and a half or something, and we'd like to get that input from Capital.
So are you talking next week?
Next Monday, 5 PM. Next Monday, Finance Committee meets at 5. Normally, we meet at 5 the first Monday so that planning can meet, but planning board doesn't have anything to talk about and they're not meeting. So they gave up their spot and we did too. So, for Capital, CIPC.
I was saying classic capital.
Got it. So right now, our balance, if we use the senior center number in their current location, not in the new building. I have a number, but I'm pretty sure I'm up to date, but. Surprise, I'm sorry. I didn't talk to you earlier today about this.
Well, the thing is that we still have not covered snow and ice deficit.
Right,
And so
I know.
that's the number that
Yeah.
I keep putting in and taking out and putting in and taking out and trying to figure out where we're going to come up with that. So,
I wrote it down to ask tonight. Good that you brought it up.
so I can give you a quick update on that while I pull this up and try to find my
Good.
number again. So snow and ice is currently overspent.
Your mic seems to have cut out or something.
What's
Is
that?
it? Your mic's not micing anymore.
Snow and ice is
Oh, there we
current.
go.
I'm not close enough, I guess. Snow and ice is currently at 207,000, so it's overspent by 107,000. We have about 10,000 that's going to be on the warrant this week. We have one vehicle that is out for some major repairs that was going to be, I believe, around $7,000. So we're estimating close to 225. We figure we're going to put it to 230 just in case we have another one of these sand, salt, slippery, icy evenings, or if something else breaks down that they just haven't identified yet to be repaired. So we're looking at needing 130,000 to cover the snow and ice deficit. And then if something else happens, we could need more, but we're going to hope we're done. So I got to put 130 in there somewhere. You're going to have to bear with me, I'm sorry.
Okay. You can wait.
I'm going to say it was like 38, wasn't it?
So while Holly is looking, and obviously everybody's been thinking about this, but I think we have a couple of options. One is to try and fund this year's budget with South County Senior Center in the building they're in right now without a Prop 2.5 override. So just figure out how to do that. Use capital stabilization to cover the capital, cut where we need to cut, and whatever. I think is one option. Another option is to look at what we would recommend for a Prop 2.5 override for this year and what should go into it. And then, not really an option, but a third thing is a Prop 2.5 override for the South County Senior Center new building. Go ahead.
So we have been funding SCEMS annually, solely with free cash, the
Yep.
SCEMS operating budget.
Yep.
I just think that needs to be part of this equation. This year, we're spending a full quarter of our certified free cash just on SCEMS.
Yeah.
So I think if we're going to talk about senior center, and I know there's probably been some thought about, larger override, smaller override, but I feel like if there's going to be an override, we should be looking at the very least, these regional agencies that serve us together, either together or in separate ballot questions, because both of them are going to require free cash subsidies. And as was already discussed, we have a pretty significant structural deficit already, so, because of the use of free cash.
Yeah. So if we brought the SCEMS, let's not talk about senior center right now. If we brought SCEMS if the override passed for SCEMS, then we wouldn't budget anything differently. We would just have less money coming out of free cash. So we would have more free cash left over.
That's right, and another way to look at that would be more free cash available to fund capital items or a potential road infrastructure stabilization fund or what have you, other
Right.
one-time needs.
Expenses. Yeah. Would we then leave the money in the capital stabilization? I guess we don't have to figure that out right now. Okay. Go ahead, Jim.
What's the current shortfall?
That's the question.
Well, she's working on it.
That's what I'm trying to get to right now. So I need to just double check. I want to be very careful. So right now, with SCEMS with South County Senior Center at the lower dollar amount. There are still a few other things we need to talk about as well, though.
Yes.
So let's. And our current revenues. This is not working. We are just about. Something's totally screwy here. We're about 30,000 short with SCEMS at South County. I keep doing that with South County at the lower dollar amount. We are $138,000 short. We've toyed with the idea of
So that 138 includes what? Does that include snow and ice or not?
That does not.
Does it include the senior center?
That includes the senior center
At the new building?
at the old building. The lower dollar amount.
I'm sorry, all right, so.
How did that?
Julie, have you adjusted? So free cash, I'm still leaving at 250 instead of 150. Are you down to 150 or 250?
250.
You're at 250? Okay.
So I got like 75,000, so I'm missing something.
Oh, wait, I misspoke. That was including, no. Yeah.
Is the 138 with the requested senior, is the 138 with the requested senior center budget? The 138 shortfall?
I had part of snow and ice in there. So I have a $30,000 deficit currently with the senior center at 22 Amherst Road. No snow and ice, and using all but, I'm going to verify one more time, using all but 250,000 of free cash.
So no snow and ice,
No snow and
22
ice.
Amherst Road,
22 Amherst Road.
and 250,000 of
250
free cash. Gives us what?
Currently, as it stands today, 28,000, about a $28,000 deficit.
Wonder how I got so far off. Okay. Well, that's very doable. Well, 100,000 for 130,000 for snow and ice. Yeah.
We were going to visit other departments.
Yeah.
One that bothers me is the library, their increase. I don't think we should be having this discussion without bringing in the library, whose increase is a six-digit increase.
With the library, we can't really change their overall budget amount without them having consequences with their consortium. But what we can do is we can put
Some of the
a
building
blend
maintenance
of
in
either
there.
the electricity or building costs or both back into their budget
Yep.
to make up some of the shortfall.
Yep.
I thought we did that already.
Because how's
No.
it going to make up the shortfall? You're just moving money from one department to another, though.
No, it's more than that, because we're putting them in a position, if we do that, where they're not going to get kicked out of their consortium. So it is, I guess, from an accounting perspective, like, kind of robbing Peter to pay Paul a little bit, but we would be able to lower the overall amount of money that we spend in the overall omnibus budget if we stuff some of the either energy or building costs back in.
I can't understand that, because we move money from their original budget to other line items, so they wouldn't be in violation, for lack of a better word, of the state's library board's restrictions. We said if we move the money, then they'll be okay.
Yep.
But we still have to come up with the money, no matter
Right.
where you put it, whether you put it
Yeah.
in the library's line item or if we put it in buildings.
So right now, the library line item includes shy of $5,000 worth of additional hours. But the total library line item is at the minimum it can be this year. So what we could recommend is pull those, call it $4,000, pull $4,000 of hours out, put in $4,000 of building maintenance, and that would remove $4,000 off of the building maintenance line item.
Yep, and that comes off the omnibus budget.
Right.
So
So we would
that's
save
what I'm.
4,000 or whatever the extra hours are.
I'm
by
not
doing
necessarily
that.
suggesting that right now, but it's
Yeah.
Theoretically, we could trim the omnibus budget a few grand doing that.
And
Yeah.
I do just want to mention that the library budget, we do need to refigure, because the numbers that we all were calculating on the fly that night didn't 100% work. We're off around $1,000.
She has to take 1,000, well, My recommendation would be that she take $1,000 out of the additional hours. So
Okay.
it's 5,000 something requested, and it would go down to 4,000 something.
Okay, and I can make that, if that's
Yeah.
what you'd like to do, I can make that adjustment. So there's a
Yeah.
few things that we have to kind of come back to and follow up on.
Right.
And that was one of them.
So I think what we should probably do is propose, like, how low are we willing to go in free cash? And then
Yeah.
ask the select board to, and the, y'all, the budget director and the town administrator to look at how they can get there, because y'all are the elected officials and set the priorities for the town. We can make recommendations, and I think we all have recommendations in mind. There's definitely some hesitation for adding positions or adding hours when the schools are cutting hours and cutting positions, so.
The overages of around 30,000 is the new, conservation position.
Yep.
Yep.
And then, again, when we talk about a Prop 2.5 override, here we are, every year, we're talking, it was $155,000 of an increase to our insurance that we are just kind of like fitting into this budget while we
Yep.
muscle out conservation position, any hours at the library, like I feel like year
But
after
you know
year
what,
after
we're
year.
getting there.
What-
But you're right. We
Yeah,
are
we just keep-
spending more free cash than we would be comfortable
Yeah,
spending.
so.
Yeah, to be clear, $250,000 is roughly 10% of this year's certified free cash. And this year's certified free cash
Was high.
was very high.
Mm-hmm.
Do we expect it to be that high next year? Is it likely to be 2 million plus? It seems to me that the way that we are asking departments to tighten their belts, we are going to start seeing less and less and less as far as unspent appropriation at the end of each fiscal year. So that's going to be money that's not going to revert to free cash. So we'd have to rely on those other, any big one-time dumps into our certified free cash. So I personally am not at all comfortable reducing our free cash base to less than the 10% of this year's. So $250 is where I am, because I feel, unless we pass an override, I feel that next year it could cause some real serious concerns.
So there is, not necessarily in free cash, but there is expectation that solar, whatever it is going to come online, and that is expected to be what, 250,000 a year, 300?
Yeah, in the range of 250,000 a year. Yep.
So there's something there that would come back.
Christopher, can you, somebody, I don't remember which person, sent around something that said over the next 20 years, once that comes online, it's $6.3 million. That doesn't work out to $250,000 a year. So can you explain where
Yeah.
your numbers are coming from? Because I assume you know
Yeah.
this better than the rest of us.
Yeah, and I can send around the spreadsheet that includes the pilot payments and the lease payments, but the simple answer is they escalate each year. So I believe that's how it ends up getting to that higher number.
So you're speaking basically that in the first year, we'd be looking at about a $250K pilot and
Right.
lease. And let's just assume, for argument's sake, that we get half as much free cash. So we got $1 million instead, or $1.5 or 0.05 instead of 2.1. And then we got 250,000, and then we have another year like we're having here. Out of the gate, we're like 750,000 in the hole. So we really need to address the big structural problems, because they will help us with the smaller thing that we're trying to achieve, which is finding $103,000, if that's the goal, to allow the senior center to move to a building, which there are alternatives for.
So
I didn't follow what you just said.
Well, if they move to 112, it's 103,000
Right.
more than what we're talking about with this status
No,
quo.
yeah, okay.
So, and just to return to the solar question, so there's two pieces to it, right? There's a pilot and there's a lease. The pilot next year, assuming they get into commercial operation, starts at roughly $43,000. The lease payment in the first year is $217,000, so it's about $260,000. Those each escalate each year to the point where the pilot is at $63,000 20 years from commercial operation, and the lease is at $316,000. And so over that span, it's about 6.3.
I do want to know, how locked in is that?
Well,
I mean, how
so do you want a
in
status
3 years
update?
could they walk away?
No, it's a lease. It's a lease and a pilot agreement that are signed, sealed, delivered. But in terms of the status of the project, we have received permitting fees. They've created an access road. I know from pictures that Matthew has texted me that they're doing work up there because they're dragging some mud across our transfer station parking lot. He's not happy about, but
What's the annual escalator?
I think it's 1%, but I can double check. Yeah, actually, it looks like it's 2% on the pilot, and 2% on the pilot and on the lease. Yeah.
So I am reluctant to recommend a Prop 2.5 override if we can get there without one. Because as soon as the money is there, then people will say, oh, I need XYZ, and the money will go. I mean, I'm guilty too. I really want a facilities administrator, and that's a full-time position. And I think that would be great for the town to have somebody who is full-time invested in maintaining buildings and creating a capital plan. I think that'd be great. But we can't afford it this year. So even though there's a position description written and the planning, one of those P boards, personnel board is looking at it, it's not going on this budget because there's not money this year. But
Yeah, the timing of this is unfortunate because we also don't know what we're going to do with this building.
right.
So to do an override the year before we know what we're going to do with this building on something that's going to add money permanently to the omnibus budget and not be a capital expense is a hard thing for me to reconcile.
I think
Yeah.
my 2 cents is that, I guess you all know where my 2 cents is. But,
Go
you
for
know,
it, though.
whatever we do, it's whatever we put, say we decide to put the senior center in here, it's going to be more expensive than going to lease that other building long term. It just is. It's just more expensive for us to maintain, more expensive for us to remodel.
I do not agree with that.
I totally agree with that. It
I do not.
It has never been cheaper to wait and spend money later. It always
This isn't
is.
recommending spending money later.
Well, if you're going to put a senior center in here to have the needs that would meet that space, it would be more money. It just is.
It's
yeah.
not, but
Sure
okay,
is.
we will agree to disagree and
Well,
move on
thank
because
you.
we're not going to solve that right now.
No.
I'm just going to go back and answer Margaret's question a little bit. I think you are 100% right. As our budgets get tighter and tighter and tighter, there's basically 2 main sources of free cash. It's the extra revenue you get and the expenses you don't spend. The expenses we don't spend are going to be very little. In looking at the budget currently, we are like right on track for spending almost our entire operating expenses. Our revenue is doing very well. We do have some additional revenue. We have some things that we were not planning, but I don't think we're going to reach 2 million. It would be great if we did. It would be wonderful, but I'm not sure we're going to get there because on what you said is very true. On the expense side, they're losing that cushion that they have, and people are spending right down to the dollar at the end of the fiscal year. So free cash is going to be good. How good, I can't guess at this point because it's the operating expense side of it that I really kind of can't count on or estimate right now. positions are filled. We don't have vacancies currently where there's money that's just kind of sitting there unspent. Projects are all moving forward. Like, everything is happening right now. So I can't guess. It'll be good. It won't be $2 million would be my guess.
And it shouldn't be.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, and if I could just mention some tangible things that we expect to see in free cash. Dorm permit fees at DA. We got a $160,000 rebate back for the Leary Lot project. We've got, the permit fees for the solar. Those came in for the solar on the landfill. I feel like there's a couple others. Can't use the barn, right? Yeah. Right.
I mean, just additional interest.
Yeah.
Because it's still doing decently.
Well, $2 million was high. I mean, that was
Yeah.
extraordinarily
It
high.
was.
So,
It was
yeah.
high. But we've been high
1.5.
1 point somethings, 1.7, you know, for a bunch of years. So who knows? And we've also, like, we keep having this discussion that, oh my gosh, 2.5%, that just the salaries and the COLAs are more than 2.5%. But at the same time, if you look back, I mean, we've added the assistant town administrator, which used to be secretarial. We've added a full-time admin assistant
Planner.
person. We've added the planner position. We've added the admin assistant to the highway department. We've added a bunch of FTEs in the, I don't know how much, in the senior center.
Yeah.
At least a person and a half, maybe two people. So even, I mean, like, we are, and we've significantly increased the salaries, which was needed for a bunch of the primary people who are working for town, all of which is good. But we've done that without a Prop 2.5 override.
Correct.
So
Because our
as
free
you
cash
know, I
was
feel like
healthy.
as long as we can hang in there, I don't know. In my opinion, other people disagree. So
Well, it's worth remembering we are looking at some major expenses looming on the horizon too. So if we
Right.
can avoid having one, we may need to have one later. So don't have more than you need.
yeah.
Yeah, I brought this up last week. I assume, are you talking about the Franklin?
Yeah.
Yeah, the Franklin County Tech capital assessment. That's going to be big. We've got, if you look at our population, this is the thing that, again, going back to having a hard time reconciling, I'm legit having a hard time reconciling this. Our population's aging. The number of people on fixed incomes is increasing. And we're about to ask them to bear a large cost for this Franklin County Tech school. And there was something else. The other thing I wanted to say about it is, I would hate to have to do a Prop 2.5 multiple years in a row. The Franklin Tech thing is going to be a debt exclusion, so that doesn't really count. But I don't want to go to the town if we do end up deciding to recommend, we as either a finance committee or the select board decides to recommend that we, move to Sunderland, move the seniors to Sunderland, and then do SCEMS in another year. I would want this to be a one and done thing. I hope that we don't do it at all, honestly. If there is a path to get there and then there is a path to take care of our seniors, and I think this is all going to shake out pretty soon. But I definitely don't want to do it multiple times. If we do end up doing it, I would hope that we don't do it again for another 30 years.
How do we then move the SCEMS onto our budget?
Well, that's
My
another thing I've been
question
thinking about
if
is
we can't do it for the senior center, how do we do it for the SCEMS? And the SCEMS, it has to go on. It's been 10 years. We've been paying for that with free cash. I mean, at some point, we need to correct our budget and put the money where it's supposed to be and level with the town and say, this is what it costs to run your community. And this is a vital function that we all pay for. And I think the senior center should be a vital function we all pay for too. But senior center aside, the SCEMS budget has been bothering me for years. And then our insurance on top. And again, I keep saying, we have added, and you're right, we have made it work. We've made it work because we are lucky that we get these one-time, we're very good about budgeting our revenue and our local receipts, and then we get these one-time hits here and there that kind of just make it work, and we string it along. But the deficit is that SCEMS, and I don't know, how do you do that correctly, like legally? How do you move that in without doing a Prop 2.5 override? Because you can't cut 300,000 or 400,000 out of your budget.
No, and we would. So when we vote the budget right now, and it shows up in the warrant, it says some number of dollars raise and appropriate, and then like 50 cents from the wetland fund, and $100 from here, and then it says and X from free cash,
Right.
$30,000 from free cash.
Correct.
So if we put SCEMS into our omnibus budget, instead of saying $30,000 from free cash, it would say $530,000 from free cash, and that's.
But that's not the correct
It's
way
not
to do it.
right. So we should not be using free cash for
Correct.
Operating expenses.
Right. Well, that's what I mean. How do we move that correctly onto our budget?
It's not
We've all
illegal.
said- No,
It's
I know
just
it's not.
advised. You just move it, honestly.
Well,
I feel like
think
we're talking past each other because
We are.
you're
Well, I'm wondering how can we do that for SCEMS
what
and not
what
do it for
DLS
seniors?
would like us to do, the Division of Local Services, they would like us to have an override and move that money onto our
Right.
operating budget,
Yeah.
right? They don't want us throwing free cash at it.
Yeah.
So, regardless of the mechanics, otherwise,
Right.
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, and I think whenever we do the senior, we should be doing that at the same time.
Agreed.
And I think we're in a carts and horses situation slightly. Like, that's why I'm saying the timing of this sucks, because we've got a building that could actually be good use in Sunderland, and we've got one here that we have, well, two here that we haven't quite figured out. So it's, almost like a monkey's paw situation where it's like, we finally get this to free up, in Sunderland, but, then there's this other thing that's happening. So I don't know. I truly am undecided, but I'm not sure if that question was directed to me, Trevor. That's the
No,
only
it
reason why I'm
wasn't.
saying
It was just how do we do that? Because I think it needs to happen, and I think it should be agreed together. And should we also say insurance has gone up so much every year, and we should be covering that with our taxation and not just cutting all the time.
Go ahead, Tim, and then I get to go.
Yeah, so SCEMS is like the police department, right? It's a public safety service, it's critical care, and we're financing it with uncertain revenue. And there's no way except an override to get it into the levy. So that, to my mind, has to happen. If there are alternatives for other things, and we all agree, I think we've all stated that the senior center is a great public service, it's great for the seniors, socialization, et cetera, and being in one building is an important factor. And even with all the questions, there's still questions about 112. We don't know what the contract's going to say. We don't know what the expenses are going to be. This building has got, would fit a senior center in it, and so all of the things that are true about 112 and having all of your critical functions in one building are true here.
Yep.
There's a field out back here, so there's plenty of green space. So there's a lot of things that are the same about this space as there are about 112. But SCEMS, we've had it for 12 or 13 years, and we know that this regional service works, and it needs to be brought into the budget. And I would not support an override just for the senior center. I wouldn't. I would support bringing a number to the citizens and saying, we're going to take SCEMS into the budget, and if it's the decision of the select board that we should put forward an override to cover moving it to 112 instead of using this building, yeah. Well, here we could do essentially the status quo budget. The rent is roughly the same. It's within $10,000, $15,000 if we use Julie's numbers, or if we used, utilities and, some other small amount. And then we'd have also saying, what if we spent $300,000 on renovation here? But that's, when we talk about the cost to the 3 towns to move to 112, is it roughly $200,000 a year? I don't remember.
Yeah, something
Right.
like that.
So over a 10-year period, that's $2 million. If it's moving here at status quo and it's $300K for doing, the initial painting, et cetera, taking some walls down, that's $300,000. It's not $2 million. So it's a lot cheaper on one level to move here. And since I look at both of these places in my own mind and say that they're temporary answers, I don't see this as necessarily, maybe 10 years from now we'll have grants written and we get a brand new building. But that's just me. But I really don't think it's an override for just that. It makes sense. It's got to be more systemic.
So back to the SCEMS, I'm gonna go and then you can go. Back to the SCEMS thing for a second. This year is I think, an abnormally high year for SCEMS because of the ambulance that we just bought. So there's no retained earnings, thank you, on this budget. So we're at like 550 or something, is that the number, right? So if we did an override this year for whatever it is, 550, I feel like that's too high.
Correct.
If we do like Josh is recommending and we split out the ambulance and make a capital fund for the ambulance, that can stay on free cash because that's capital. And then, so that takes SCEMS down 125 or something, right? And I think it'll take it down even more than that. So we're not looking at 550,000 override.
Correct.
And I don't feel like we know right now what that number, and we could pick a number. But I'm not sure. Well, I'm back to not thinking that we should be doing it right now. But go ahead, Margaret, you're up.
I agree. Oh, the timing is just like Mark said, the timing is really tough this year because, yes, I mean, could we plug this hole using free cash this year? It's likely we could. Even if, well, I don't know if we went with the senior center's requested budget. But as far as SCEMS goes, are we certain that they would be funding their capital stabilization from free cash alone, or are they looking to use any of their retained earnings toward it? And if they are, we would see reductions in the retained earnings put toward their operating in future years, right?
I believe the proposal was there would be a separate fund that is capital that would be funded from the towns, and it would just be capital and retained earnings. It would be a separate thing.
So I think generally the idea, if you have an ambulance fund or a capital stabilization fund for an EMS department, is you're going to be taking each year a portion of your retained earnings and putting it in there.
Oh, they
and
would.
building it
Oh,
up.
okay.
Yeah.
So that was the original plan. I mean, that was the original argument, but we haven't done that.
Right.
And then this is my 2 cents. This is my own opinion. I do believe that if we look, we are, the fiduciary agents for the town, the recommending body. I do think that putting, for us, it's going to be an increase of $129,000 a year for the South County Senior Center into a lease is not the most fiscally responsible measure we could take. However, we heard in this room that there are many, many local seniors who want a voice, who want to be able to speak to this, who want a chance to vote on it. I'm kind of stuck at how we, yes, we have to make our recommendation in the most fiscally responsible manner possible, but I also feel it's very important for voters and for voters to express their voices on this matter. This is a town matter, so I just don't know how to get there. I don't know how to do it. And the last thing is, look, if the Franklin Tech School question on October 6th passes, and we subsequently go to a debt exclusion, and say, for example, it passes, the likelihood of us passing an override after that is going to be slim to none.
Yeah,
It's,
it is.
yeah, it's going to be slim to none. So timing is really a challenge this year. It's
It
really-
is.
Yeah.
So a couple of things on SCEMS. One of the reasons why the BOO has recommended creating a capital stabilization fund is so we can lock away retained earnings, because what's happened in the past is that even though the intention was always to spend retained earnings on equipment, we would get talked into it by ourselves and bring it to the finance committees and use all of the retained earnings for a purpose that's, to lower the charges to each of the towns. So yeah, there would still be retained earnings available, but each year, 125,000 or 175,000 of retained earnings would be put into this to buy not only ambulances, but loaders and other medical equipment that they have to replace every 8 years, like heart monitors, et cetera. So, and if I heard, this is a question, I thought I heard Elisa say that you would put, one way to do this to allow everybody to vote is to have the status quo budget for the senior center on, and then have a second one that says a higher number, provided there's an override.
Yeah.
And so, I just wanted to check my memory that I understood her correctly. Is that what everyone else understood?
Yeah.
Yep.
Just gives them the ability to vote.
So my question is that we've heard a lot about 112 and what needs to be done to fix that building. When I've talked about this building in the past, it's basically, I've heard it's beyond repair. There's, we can't use this building. And now I'm hearing that you can, but is there a dollar figure? The 130,000 for 112 is lease and the rest of it goes with it. What about this building itself? What would be the yearly figure if we moved into this building? And I know that you would level fund if you stayed at 22 Amherst Road. So I was just wondering what the cost would be.
Julie, I know there was a really highball figure, the $5 million to renovate this building. So today I ran a number and said, okay, if the three towns, if we had to borrow $2.5 million, say it's under that $5 million, but but it's going to take significant funds. If we borrowed $2.5 million at 4% interest over 15 years, and I'm sure they wouldn't let us get away with more than 15 years simply because of the age of this building. You're looking at about $225,000 a year. Deerfield's share at 54% would be $121,500 a year. This borrowing would have to be debt excluded because we're not going to be able to absorb that in our budget either. So, but then again, that would significantly renovate it.
And it would likely be less too, I think, right? Because I think that figure assumes a change of use and some of the projects that would go with getting a building that's got a change of use up to code. And if that assumption's not true, which I don't think it is, the amount that we would have to invest would be less than that $5 million figure.
So we could, you could do a full renovation of this building at the sort of $5 million level. If you go over, I think it's 30% of the value of the building, then you have to bring it up to code even if it's not a change of use. And that $5 million estimate included a sprinkler system, new HVAC, a whole bunch of building envelope stuff. Infilling this floor, do you remember? Infilling this floor.
That was an option. I don't think that there was a necessity. I don't know if you had to do that by code.
So the other thing we could do is choose to put $300,000 to pick a number into the building and do the most important work. And if y'all work in this building, but my understanding is that the main problems with this building are basically the windows along that side. The south side gets very hot when the sun is shining in, so we would need to do something about the heat along those buildings. And then the bathrooms probably need to be looked at and upgraded.
Need more of that, probably.
So
And a
in my
kitchen.
opinion, a shower is a want, not a need. It would be lovely to have a shower. It would be great, but it's not a need for the basic services of a senior center. And you can argue against that if you want to. So if we made a list of what to do in this building, you say, okay, I have $300,000 to spend, and we would work with the senior center, obviously, to come up with this list, but the priority would be clean the building, paint the building, look at the temporary, these were classrooms, so they're big rooms. The walls that were put in after the building was built, so they were put in later, they're probably going to come out fairly easily. They probably don't have tons of services in them. So you pull out some of those walls and make those big spaces so they are
But again, with
available.
that's not something that has to be done right away. If you're going to, like I say, you prioritize what you're going to do.
Right.
And then you come up with funds to continue to do what you need
But
to
I
get
think
done.
300,000 you could get a long way towards what you want done.
Need a
And that's
kitchen.
just,
You
they're
need
not
a
putting
kitchen
a
in the
kitchen
other
in
place, too.
112.
Well, they should have a kitchen.
They should have a kitchen, yes, and I agree. And if we could get at least partway towards a kitchen with that 300,000.
I think we have one behind us, don't we?
Yeah, but it's not.
Yeah, it's not up to great. Go ahead, Jim.
So just to be the cranky guy, we are renovating the 1888 building for town offices because this building was unsuitable for use as town offices. And it was, but
We are
all of a sudden
renovating
it's
that
building.
No, so
it seems to be a Schrodinger's building where it is too expensive to use for some purposes, but it's cheap enough to use for other purposes.
yeah,
I'm
but
not
so that's
personally opposed to
Uh-huh.
putting the senior center here. I much prefer having the senior center in South Deerfield rather than out by the storage units on 116. But we ought to be realistic about costs. This will not be a $300,000 job.
So the reason that building was upgraded for town hall, so that building was in much worse shape than this building is. The reason that building was upgraded for not for a senior center, but for town hall, was because it's a 2-story building. And we didn't feel like that was appropriate for a senior center. So the thought was, well, let's put town hall in there and then use this building for a senior center.
Yeah, I mean,
But
Yeah, I mean, go ahead.
we have a third building that we also acquired for a senior center.
yeah, exactly.
No, that was for senior housing.
Nope,
But-
it was for the
No,
senior
no.
center.
No,
That's
the
why we paid
church.
$1 for it.
the
You're
1821.
talking about the 18,
The other
Yeah.
church.
that was a, yeah.
We're collecting churches too, yeah.
The other thing about one of the drivers for the 1888 building was that we could use CPA historic preservation funds to pay for saving a building that's architecturally important to the center of South Deerfield. There are not that many buildings that are. And, one of the interesting discussions that we had at the construction meeting was that W.J. Mountford's project manager said, you couldn't build this exterior of this building for $6 million right now. And that's what the bid came in for to do it. And then we got the $4 million federal grant. So if we could get a $4 million federal grant here, we could renovate it. But I don't know. I mean, maybe other people think that 112 is going to be a permanent home. It's built in 1973, so it's 53 years old. This is built in 1960. Is that the right date?
I think so.
So this has got, 13 years on the other building, or 14. But we didn't decide to move out of here because this building doesn't function. I mean, it's not the greatest building.
That was one of the arguments
No,
made.
that's one of the stories that gets told, but it's not
I
factual.
remember. I go to town meeting every year. I remember that being an argument in favor of moving.
This space doesn't work great for these. Like, the hearing wasn't good, the ceiling's so high, so it made sense to be in a more modern building, smaller, more efficient for sound carry, all of that. That was a big issue, for sure.
A more modern building that's 100 years older.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, though, because that rhetoric is being used. We are hearing the rhetoric now that it wasn't good for the town hall, so it's not good for our seniors, and it's just logically false. I really do think that, this building has multiple uses in it, one of which being a senior center after we move over to the old school, or the 1888 building.
The main issue was the parking and the function around here. Maybe as we get further along and we don't get over there and we wind up here, we talk about moving the ball field so we get more parking in town.
Yeah, that'll be
over here. But
that'll be another
we got
contentious
another
one.
whole ball field nobody uses on the other side. So I don't know. There's space that could be had here with a little more letting go of the past. So
Yeah, that's not lost on me either.
Go ahead, Jim, and then Blake. Jim?
I have one more question, and this is a procedural question about the Senior Center Board of Oversight. Who has budgeting authority for the Senior Center? Is it the director or is it the Board of Oversight?
Board of Oversight.
Okay.
And we develop it with the director.
So they were talking about the green space and the parking and the rest of the thing. I was here for the last meeting on last Monday, and I'm watching all these cars parked on the lawn out in front here. We could actually dig that out and put parking from there all the way over to the trees. And then again, over on the side, we could open that up for more parking as well. You don't know what we have for parking spaces in here, that you have the potential to do it without going into the ball field.
So,
Oh, I was just going to mention that, a lot of this is within 200 feet of the riverfront, so to speak, so we just have to be careful about that.
What are we going to do with the Congregational Church building? I think that needs to be part, huh? Tear it down? I mean, what? No, wait a minute. It's sitting there vacant. What, what are we going to are we going to leave it vacant forever and just keep putting money into it to maintain it?
Well, obviously, I mean, things change from year to year. When Eagle Brook renovated the Fellowship Hall portion, it was with the intent that it could be used by the Senior Center, but then the library's project came along, and the Senior Center seemed unwilling to move there, even though it was twice as large as the 22 Amherst Road. So we put the library in there. Now we have to figure out what's the next use for it. We are talking about trying to save as much CPA money from the 1888 project to use it for historic renovation to make the sanctuary space usable as a community center, whatever. There's been no absolute decision about what it should be used for. But again, it's the other building in town that's even older than the 1888 building that's actually historically important to South Deerfield. And, we've got a warrant item going up to fix the steeple. We already spent, grant money to fix the structural integrity of the roof. So the next step is to make the sanctuary space usable. And then we'll have about, what do we figure, 6,000 square feet of space between the Fellowship Hall and the sanctuary
over
that
6,000.
could be used for public meetings, for public, musical events. Maybe the rec department can have winter stuff in there, yoga classes, So your guess is as good as mine.
I guess I have a problem with vacant buildings. If we go over to Sunderland, this will be a vacant building. The Congregational Church will be a vacant building. We have what was going to be the park is vacant. How much vacant real estate do we want? That's
why we like to find uses for those two buildings, this building and that building.
Well, I think that has isn't that destined to be senior housing?
Not if no one builds on it.
That's up in the air.
So
Yeah, we're getting, Blake, did you have something you wanted to say?
I just wanted to add, I don't disagree with all of the statements made about this building. In fact, I think when it comes time for us to vote on the senior center budget, I think it's in my fiscal conservative approach. I would absolutely vote in favor of the smaller budget. However, I feel very, very strongly, we had Deerfield voters, Deerfield residents sitting in the audience who would like an opportunity to vote on this. And I think every voter should have the opportunity to make themselves heard, whether for or against. I'd hate for this to become a contentious issue, and I'd hate even more to prevent voters from having a say on it. So I know where I stand fiscally, but I just think it's very important for the voters to be able to have a say. I don't know how we approach that.
So Margaret, I feel like there are two things you've said that are kind of in tension. One, it's you don't want to go so low on free cash. You want to preserve some of that free cash. You could go lower on free cash potentially and just have this on the warrant and not need an override. But you can't. If you want to preserve some free cash, it's probably going to have to be an override.
So I think you should put an override just for the senior center for the 105,000 plus, maybe plus the capital piece. I don't know that they're asking their tables or whatever it is.
Why would we not do? Here we go. We're going in circles now. Why would we not do South County SCEMS too, if that's the case? Because again, if we get through October 6th and we have a debt exclusion for Franklin
Right.
Tech,
No, none of
Yeah.
us are gonna.
we're so unlikely to have anything pass after that.
Could we
Okay,
do?
why not both?
Could we do the and
Do them
as
each of
Lisa's
Put
going to
two
give us
of them
that
on there.
menu,
Yeah,
that menu,
do the
that
menu,
tiered
or
thing?
have two votes.
You have two votes. Say, if this
One for
passes, we
SCEMS,
go
one
here. Yeah,
for-
one for SCEMS, one for there, and
Yeah.
one for the insurance increase.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel
I
like,
think that,
I don't know. I just feel
itemizing
like
can
it
do.
sounds really
you're
good.
asking for it.
So I'm going to just throw, this is not for a motion, it's just a proposal to discuss for a minute. I would like to throw out there that we ask the select board and the town folks, like if we brought free cash down to 200,000 rather than 250, we've been as low as 175-ish in the past. 178 is my memory. I'd have to go back and look. But if we brought it down to 200, that gives them 50,000. And then look at what would be required to get to that number. And there's some thoughts. I think there's room in the police budget, possibly. I think there's the extra hours in the library. There's the extra hours on the conservation agent from 12 up to 18, because they were at 12 this year, right? We could pull the police cruiser out of the omnibus budget and pay for that out of, capital stabilization. There's a bunch of things, and like you guys can look at stuff too, but just see what it would take to get down to some number.
Oh, yes. Yeah, please.
Go ahead, Holly.
So I'm going to throw kind of an idea out here that I think would pass muster. So I personally think that the town of Deerfield needs an override to reset their budget to a higher level. 2.5% is not enough with the skims, with health insurance, with everything. I think we need an override, but I would not want to do an override for $103,000. I would want to do an override for this is my personal opinion, we would do a override for a larger number to get skims and get these other things into our budget, get ourselves reset so that we have enough room to deal with these things in the future. But couldn't we, my understanding is that town meeting can vote to reduce a budget, town meeting cannot vote to increase a budget. So if we are not going to do an override, couldn't we present basically two budgets at town meeting, one including the new location that's $103,000 higher than our regular omnibus budget, or if they don't want to do that, then we do the lower budget at 22 Amherst Road. That gives them not a ballot question where every voter gets to vote, but at least a town meeting approval, and they are saying, everybody at town meeting is saying they want it. We need to come up with that $100,000 to fund the larger budget versus the smaller budget. And not do it as an override, but do it as like two different budget figures.
I had one
Okay,
question
go
about
ahead.
the capital. Do we have any money going set aside for capital stabilization? Do we have, we talked about using free cash or something for the library solar or something. That's not
No.
in there yet.
Capital stabilization.
Capital that's
There's no free cash being used for capital.
for anything.
Yeah,
Yeah,
at this
but
point.
for that, and for that item, I had thought a little bit about using a general stabilization request for that. I said this at the other night's meeting. Would free up some money if we weren't using capital stabilization for the solar on the library, if we used a general stabilization to borrow that and then replenish it next year when the grants come in to pay for it. Because we'll have the rebate, and we'll also have, there were a couple other things that we're going to pay for that item.
Yeah, the tax credit.
And it would free up a couple $100,000. Not that those have been voted on yet or approved or anything, but just it might free up a little bit of space if we asked to do that out of general stabilization instead of capital stabilization, because that money could then go back into general stabilization next year.
Yeah. Possible.
But I do want people to vote on it, or at least have an ability to vote
So
one way or the other.
yeah, I would like to see, in my opinion, on either on the warrant or at the ballot, there should be a vote that is just moving to 112 Amherst Road up or down.
Yep.
And not wrap it into, because I could, like, I personally, just me voting,
Yeah.
I would probably vote for the SCEMS thing and not vote for 112 Amherst
Right.
Road. And if 112 Amherst Road was tied to the SCEMS, I would have difficulty deciding which way to go.
Lisa could set we could do it as a tiered thing, right? So
Right.
that,
And it could
passes,
show
but
up
the other
on the
doesn't.
ballot, that, I mean,
Yeah.
on the warrant that way.
Yeah.
Although not, the tiered was inclusive, so you would vote for one of them or both of them. But then there was also the
You could just have
essentially
two
doing them as
separate, yeah,
override
yeah.
votes.
So
Yeah.
not tiered,
I
but,
feel like the
yeah.
menu, because it's right, because some people will say, look, I don't want to move to 112, I like this building here, let's figure it out later. But it would give them an opportunity to vote to get the SCEMS into the budget, and that would free up some stuff. I don't know.
Okay.
When do we have to lock this budget down?
So, yeah, and Cassie and I were just talking about it. So our bylaw says we've got to close the warrant 30 days before town meeting. Closing the warrant, we have understood to mean we can't add new articles to it. So there is the potential to, either do an omnibus budget draft article that includes an override, with this contingent third column, so to speak, in our budget, or to have a placeholder article, for an override, and allow the board to actually wait until April 13th, which is after the 30-day deadline, but to actually vote something onto the ballot, if that makes sense.
Correct.
So you could have closed the warrant, so to speak, on
2 weeks.
April 8th, and vote the override question on April 13th, which is a Monday. So
Yeah.
there may
We
be a
have
finance committee meeting.
So you guys will be in
Could be
session
convenient.
anyway.
Yeah, we'll be back to talk with you all about it.
That's 2 weeks from today.
Right. Yeah. And next week is a 1-hour meeting. Maybe we should push you back half an hour and take our time back.
with that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
How about another night, an additional night?
We could do that too.
yeah.
We haven't done pizza in a while.
Yes. We'll get pizza.
Oh, we're getting on
You're not
towards
buying
pizza
this
right
time,
now. We're really dragging it out.
Yes.
So, okay, so
All right.
maybe I will make a motion that,
Julie,
Or maybe we can just ask you to do it. What?
Just one more question. I mean, I know you were talking about voting up and down on 112, and Trevor was talking about a tier situation. Is there any way that this building could be included in that as far as funding goes and that sort of thing? Or
Well,
are we just going to leave that alone?
So I think if 112 goes down,
Yeah.
this building is a viable option, and I think we can do this building,
Without,
yeah, without an override.
okay.
In my opinion, which
Yeah.
is disagreed with by some other people. But, yeah. Trevor being a firm one. Go for it.
I think if we want to give the general public the option about going to 122, we should include the option of staying here also at the same time. Let them see both. Well, I don't know how you do it, but I think they should be able to see that. Oh, I don't know, that's a
So-
part, that's,
You know, I would just mention also, so the senior center has 1 year left on their lease at 22 Amherst Road. And likely, you know, say folks do decide we want to move the senior center into this building, probably town staff is not going to move until the fall or early winter into the 1888 building. And then you're probably going to want some time to make the kind of
Right.
renovations that have been discussed. So
Fortunately,
ultimately,
we've got the church.
yeah, they could go in the church.
They're more than welcome.
Anyway, I just wanted to clarify what
Back to
the
the
timing is there. So it's not like
Yeah.
if they immediately need to go somewhere, there's a year left on the lease.
The
But
church
we
they
would need
left.
to be looking at like fall town meeting for an appropriation to do the upgrade to this building.
Right. Yep. Some of those items could be grant funded, but yeah, some of them can't.
Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry, I talked over you.
Oh no! So I was going to say the church they left might also be back on the table. So, yeah.
So was there a
So-
motion?
No, there was no motion.
Point of order, question. Did you
I
give-
would
give
like
back
to
a half
ask
hour?
the,
What's that?
Did you give back a half hour for next Monday?
Do we have time to repost that?
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, definitely. Yep.
It's 48 hours, right?
yeah, okay. I would like to ask the select board and town administration to look at what it would take to get a budget in with 200,000 of free cash. Just whatever you have to do without a Prop 2.5 override, so we can look at that as an option. Are you guys okay with that number? I mean,
I'd even be fine with going down slightly, like 175 or 170 or whatever. You know, I wouldn't want to make a habit of doing it every year, but you know, I would be fine going lower.
Margaret wouldn't. She doesn't want 200.
That's fine.
So to be clear, you're talking about a budget that includes the 112 Amherst Road scenario?
No.
No. Okay.
No.
Just
Just
preserving
I guess there's
200,000.
no constraints. So the constraint is
Preserve
if you
200,000
didn't
in free
do
cash.
a Prop 2.5 override and you took free cash down to 200,000, what would you have to do to get there? And my assumption is 112 Amherst Road is not included in that dollar value, unless you cut something else by $100,000, which is probably not going to happen. But just so that we can look at it and see what it would take to get there.
And then we'll have to figure out how do we get everybody involved, you know, as well, or we'll get into it, and that's,
Yeah.
sorry, that's a direction that we'll just kind of come up with, and you'll either, you know,
So one,
Recommended.
yeah, you could put,
3 different.
you could put one budget, which is this cut 200,000. The next budget is SCEMS,
Correct.
Prop 2.5 override to do SCEMS and whatever, and
Yeah.
that fixes some things up.
Yeah.
And then the third, do you have to do a third complete budget, or can you do a third that's just a one line that increases?
We can get an answer from
But,
Lisa on
yeah.
that. Yeah.
And just put 112 Amherst Road, and that way you could vote 112 Amherst Road without voting the SCEMS if you
Correct.
wanted to, or vice
Correct. We
versa.
just want to give people that
Yeah.
choice.
Yeah.
And just to also educate them as to what we're dealing with and why we're asking for these things. And
Yep.
why
So when you run that scenario, would you please identify the starting balance in free cash and the amount of free cash that you've actually had to apply to operating expenses, leaving that balance of $200,000 in free cash? I think that's going to be a really important part of our conversation.
Absolutely.
Moving forward.
Yeah, and I just want to mention that I agree with Margaret that we're not going to get probably not going to get another bite at the apple of doing overrides within the next 5 years. And to her point, if you're spending 3/4 to 80% of your free cash to operate, that's a problem. It's
It
a
is
red
problem.
signal saying
It is absolutely a
you
problem.
need to fix this. And you need to decide what you need to fix first and what you need to fix second and what you need to fix third. And so I don't think that if we're going to do an override, we need to definitely structure it in a way that people will approve it for the needs that we have.
The most important needs first. Scans first.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm 67. I could have a heart attack, and I'd really like to have an ambulance come help me. You know, but on the other hand, everybody feels differently about their priorities. So
You pick the ambulance over the senior center.
Take the
Yeah.
ambulance to the scene.
No
Me
pun
too.
intended.
Me too. All right. I'm kind of tired of talking. So,
I was about to say, time check, it's almost 8 o'clock.
yeah,
we
so
should
we've
just-
been going for like 2.5 hours. Very quickly, does anybody have public comment? If you do, I'd ask you to keep it under 2 minutes. And I think that one's not on, but. Oh, is it on? Oh, okay.
Good. Jeff Upton, Hillcrest Ave, and I'm struggling with the 2.5 override for the 116 building. And I'll explain that very quickly, because right now there are 101 unanswered questions. So we need to focus, like, number one, we don't know what the asking price is of the building. Number two, some of the information that has been provided, I question, such as the base annual rent, $120. But then you have a 2.5 annual. Is that a compounding? So that, if that's compounding, that puts your rent as you go for at least 10 years, 15 years. 10 years, you get up to about a 1.5 million. 15 years, you get up over a little over $2 million. And it's a guesstimate as far as renovations, $300,000 to $500,000. That's a guesstimate. That's not a guarantee. Then you have an unanswered question of what happens if you run into elevator situation. I looked up commercial elevators, $100,000 to $150,000 for the elevator and installation. That does not include the construction you would need to carry that elevator up.
Under prevailing wage, I think you could probably safely bet on $400,000 or $500,000 anyway.
Yeah, so, I mean, that's, you know, pretty expensive. That is not being considered. So at the end of 10 years, you've spent say roughly $1.5 million. At the end of 15 years, you spent $2 million. You still don't know the asking price of the building. Right of first refusal really doesn't matter because you don't know the asking price. It could be at that point, it could be another $2 million to buy the building. If you walk away from it, you just spent $1.5 or $2 million on what? You have nothing. This building you have ownership in, you take that money and you invest it in this building. That would be a better option for everybody. And believe me, I support the seniors, the staff, they're doing an excellent job. They do need. This is one level compared to 3 levels. Whole different ballgame. And there's several other things I could bring up, but I'm running short on time. So if you really want, I'll really put something out there. If you really want to go for a 2.5 override, take a look at the Volvo building. All one level, tons of room, couple of spaces where you could park the vans in there and you wouldn't have to worry about it. But I know that's far-fetched, nobody wants to do it. Your money's better off invested here. You have
Okay.
something. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Anybody else? Nope. Online, Charlene? No?
I hadn't said anything, but
Oh, okay.
can I just ask one thing? I heard something about a conservation position. Are we looking to hire someone to do conservation
Yes,
decisions?
yes.
There is not anyone currently, but we might start a new position where that person does that?
I believe there is a person in, oh, I'm sorry, Chris. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was going to say, so there is a current conservation agent. That position has been so far piloted using Wetland Protection Act funds. Those funds are running out, and so the ask this year from our conservation chair was to put that position on the operating budget and fund it at a certain level, which I believe the finance committee has so far declined to do. I mean, you funded it at a level, but not the level requested by the Conservation Commission. So that's the synopsis there.
And the reason for needing that position is what? I mean, I've listened to the Conservation Board, and Peter Law is a phenomenal chairperson, and with a wealth of knowledge that's just very impressive. And this other person that might come into Deerfield as another employee for the town, what are they going to offer that we're not already getting?
Yeah, and I don't want to put words in Pete's mouth, but I think he would say, I'm not going to be here forever. And he is also getting burnt out just doing as much work as he does for that Conservation Commission. So I think that it's his proposal. So I just want to make it clear that's why he put the conservation agent position forward.
Okay, thank you.
Can
All
I,
right, thanks.
can I just add to that I think he also mentioned that the conservation position would help keep the Conservation Commission out of trouble. A few years ago, when we had the severe storms, the town ended up paying fines to DEP for violations in the cleanup following the floods. This past, I think it was 2023, the most recent flooding we had, he was here and was able to mitigate any fines. Is that correct?
Yeah, I can't speak to the earlier instance you're talking about, but I know after the 23 storms, yes, there were some DEP violations, and Pete Law was certainly helpful in navigating what we needed to do to make sure that we weren't actually fined. We did the restorative work necessary without incurring fines.
Jim, go ahead.
I just would like to ask, ma'am, can you spell your last name for me?
Mine?
Yeah.
Galenski. Just as a thought, and again, I'm all for saving money, but if you're worried about storms and making sure we do everything legally, wouldn't it be a possibility to hire people privately for that moment rather than putting someone on our payroll, giving them benefits, having to pay retirement? That's where we started to run into trouble with a lot of the new positions. We're now finding that you have to pay for it. And many of the positions were absolutely necessary, but we have to start looking at those numbers. We're only a town of 5,000 people, and, how reasonable is it to keep adding staff, which are going to cost us money in the long run if they're positions that entail a lot of time. That's just maybe a private consultant or something on occasion when needed, but I'm not for a full-time or whatever the position hours are being thought of.
Okay. Thank you, Charlene, for the input.
You're
The
welcome.
position as it is right now is a part-time position that is not benefited.
Okay.
But that could
All right,
certainly
thank you.
change
That's
going
helpful.
forward. I have one request that not for now, for next week or the week after. The subject of indirect came up last week related to South County EMS. Can you all bring back the calculation for indirect so that we can look at that at some point? Anybody like to?
Motion to
Anybody else?
adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor? It's unanimous.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Trevor McDaniel, aye?
Blake Gilmore, aye.
Tim Hilchey, aye.